Okay, as I have always mentioned, that I have a ton of these different styles of no-toes, and this is one style that is pretty much straight across. This is where a gigantic bone came down, and we'll be able to see in the microscope the center of the bone, and obviously something has eroded around here a bit. But look at this. These are the Terracotta warriors. Now, they were so exact about every bit of detail about them, and they all have these little flat feet on the toes, like they're no toes. And they have very, very heavy-duty legs and so forth, which would indicate that that could very well be from one of these things. I don't know. I have no idea, but that's a foot of some sort, and that's the bottom underneath, and they walk like this. See, it has the arch of the foot and all that stuff. Now I'm going to take it and put it under a microscope, and you'll see the fabric of life. This is where it impacted in the front. Now I don't know, there might have been some erosion off of here. There appears to be some erosion out of here, and probably off the sides and so forth. Probably there was another bone attached right here, it looks like to me. I don't know. I really don't know. This is not anything like we have, that's for sure. But you do know that I have, well, you should know, I have a ton of these different styles of no-toes. I have this one here, and I can carry one over, another one over here. My arm is not strong enough to carry the other one. It's just too big. I'll have to... Even this one's hard right now. I really hurt my shoulder. I'm going to have surgery, I'm sure. Now, that's, again, underneath. It's the same stuff. It's got an arch. And this one has springs in it that are here instead of tendons. Now, I don't know what this has as far as the structure inside. No idea. But it does seem to have some kind of a focal point there. Whatever, you know, this is all brand new stuff. Nobody knows anything about this, so, you know, I'm doing the best I can, especially with my invalid status. Now, let me show you one more big one over here. And hold on, let me turn on the lights. Alright, I know this is hard to believe, but it is factual. This is a foot from some Oompa Loompa is what I call them. That's the arch of the foot in the back. That's the heel. This is where it impacts in the front, just like the other one. This right here is there's a tibia and a fibula. This is where the fibula is at. Now, if we put a little moisture on there, you could probably see the bone where it's stuck together there. Hold on. Let's give it a try. I haven't looked at this in a long time. But look at the size of this thing. It's flat on the top. And it laid this way here. So it didn't lay flat on the top here. And there's a place where the bone is in the back here. I'm sure it's going to be hard to see. Let's see if we can see the one on the side. Sometimes they show right up when you put a little water on them. And sometimes they don't. I think that's it right there where the actual attachment point was. Yeah, I can see it now. I don't know if you will, but I can. Now this one up here, alright, I can see it now. It's right over in this area here. If you get in the right light, you should be able to see that over here. Of course, everything erodes a little bit, and then these just fall right off because there's almost no solid attachment to the fibula. The tibia and the fibula lay sideways, just like it does on my other one here, this one here. You see, same thing happened here. It just falls right off. This is another no-toe. The toes are built in. Same thing with this one. This has the toes built in. And the other one has just a flat spot in the front. And I think it has toes built in. I don't know. But I would say both of these do. And then I have another couple, well, at least I have one more very certain style. And then I have this one here. Whoa! I don't know where this came from. But see this one here? That's another no-toe. And guess what? You see all these stripes in here? You say, oh, that can't be. I don't know. That's the way your bodies are built. You see this? How cool this is? That's where the red blood was in here. This thing's been sitting in here in my shop here for 5-6 years minimum. That's where the red blood is still growing stuff. And I don't put any water on it. It just grows. And that's why I always say you look for, if you see something fuzzy green growing out of a rock, there's blood under there. That's where blood was under there. I have some out here that I took pictures of the other day. I lost the pictures. I don't know what happened to them, but where it was another gigantic no-toe. And you could see the black blood was lichen. It turns to lichen. And right next to it was the red blood turned to moss, really fuzzy looking moss. And that's what happens. The black blood goes to lichen, that flat white stuff. If you look in the center of the patch of lichen, you're going to find a little blood vessel, which is the vein. The arteries always turn red. I mean green. Arteries are red and they turn the green fluffy stuff. The veins are normally blackish looking and they come out with lichen. You know, only in certain places. There's other areas there's no growth on these at all. But some places they're just covered with that kind of stuff. All right, so anyway. Alright, this is the best shot I've got to show the difference between the lichen, this is growing where there was black blood, which is the vein blood. This is growing in the red blood. It loves red blood. And it always gets fuzzy and green. And the lichen is always in the black blood area. Alright, you have to put water on these to really get any good pattern shots. But you can see the circle here. If you look, you have to look carefully now. You can't just glaze over this quickly. See if I can focus in a little better. I guess that's about the best I'm going to get. Anytime you see reddish looking stuff, that's red blood normally. And red blood will sort of make a puddle around it where it comes out. Black is a little different. I believe this is the black. But this is this circle pattern right here is the core of the bone. Now this was a big bone that came down here. So this is the very core. And here's where we are right now of that foot right there. Alright, and this is it sure looks like the one, you know, it's got a flat front to it just like the other one. Now, let's get way up off the top of that bone and look down at the whole bone pattern. Alright, we're way off, up above this, looking down so we can get the whole bone here at once. And there it is right there. Now, again, take your time for a second. This is the full circle of where that bone was. Some of it is gone. This is the exact center that we were looking at before. That's the central core right there. Alright, let me come a little closer just so we can get it best we can. Now, you see that little dot? That's the really dead center. Now it's in the process of drying up. As it dries up, you see more and more features, or you see less and less features, it depends. But as you remember, this is the circular pattern of the bone. This is the center core. And you can see it's drying up pretty quick. It's when they turn into mud fossils, and truly mud fossils, there's a lot of different types of mud fossils, but the mud fossils, they really absorb quickly. You can see it's sucking the moisture up pretty good. And this is about the third time I moisturized it, because the first time you do it, blip, it's gone. So, but now you can see we're losing some of the detail. Anyway, what you need to do is to really play a lot of games, to be perfectly honest with you, so that you can see the different patterns. We've lost a lot of it already. So anyway. Alright, this is the heel bone, right down at the very back of that big flat looking foot that looks like something might have been on the Terracotta Warriors, I don't know. But now look at the largesse of this bone. That's the center right there. That's a good sized bone coming down for that little bitty foot. Now, was there more on the front of that? I don't know. But they look like they have little bitty feet in those Terracotta Warriors. Let me show you the best shot I have. Alright, this is kind of a shocker. If this is true, it's a serious shocker. Now, I showed you the foot, and you saw how heavy duty that big bone was in the back here. That would be, if that was just the bone, think of how big the leg would have been. It would be almost right to the edge of the foot. I mean, you know, maybe there was an extension there, I don't know. But I can tell you what, if you look at the Terracotta Warriors here, look at his foot. Look at that. Now, and they're all like that, it's not just him. Now, they didn't, you know, they just wouldn't throw a block on the guy's foot. Just, yeah, they'd throw a block on his foot. And look at the size of the legs on him. Now, look at the detail here. Now, this is not just some thing they just threw together and throw blocks on their feet. Why would they do that? Absolutely not. Look at the details in the faces, the fingers. They had real weapons. They had horses and everything. And I can see the same thing on the horses. I believe they were, I don't know if these are real or not. I have no idea. But this is the other thing I looked at. I did as much research as I could. And I found out that they said there was a lot of apatite in these things, which mostly all they did was look at you know, the paints and how they led and all this stuff in these things, and how they, you know, this is what this is all about, is why these different colors are here and all that. Well, these I think they used as almost like transition metal colors to seal the body parts underneath. And if this is true, now look at what I also turned up. Look at this. This is the guy's arm. All right, so it's coming down and it's broken off, and here's where his hand is. Now, this is kind of a funny looking structure here. And I looked at it first and I said, oh wow, you know, because I wasn't really expecting this to be creatures. And I looked, it's nothing. It's just somebody they made like a frame, and then they just coated it with clay. So that's what I started thinking. Then I started looking at the layering. Then I started thinking, you know, if this is an arm, you got a, you know, a humerus and an ulna. You got two bones. And there's only one stick in there that I thought. So then I started looking at it as close as I could look at it. And I think I see two there. Now let's home right in on that. Now this thing fades in and out, but I think those are two bones right there. You see the one in the center and the one right under it? Hold on, this is not going to work too good for me here, but... Oh, okay, here we go. I would like to see that, you know, up close and personal. I don't think they let you do any of that, but... Let's see if it'll home in. You see? Okay, that's about the best we're going to do right there. And what you're looking at is two bones, I think. The radius and the ulna. One of them is pretty heavy duty and the other one is not quite so heavy duty. And I think that's what we might be seeing right there. If that's true, yikes. That's all I could say. Alright, so we started out talking about these flat feet and why they would do this. I mean, everything else is absolutely flawless. Could they have actually had these flat feet? It seems that they all had them. And this was a foot And this is pretty flat. Now, and this is the actual foot. If it had a shoe around it, maybe they made them flat as just like that. I don't know. I have no idea. We're seeing what we're seeing. Now, here's the key. I'm seeing all these transition colors and all these kind of things, and looking at, you know, like this guy's neck and everything here. You know, things turn into mud, and this apatite stuff. Now, look at this very closely right here. You see that? Just take your time. This is about what I would expect to see if whatever they used to coat these things, and they must have had some chemistry that would seal the outside, just like it sealed the lung, like this here. People always ask me all the time. They say, well, how come it came out just perfect like that? Why was it like that? Well, it was, everything was boiled off, and the chemistry was aluminum silicates. Now, how they did what they did, I have no idea. You know, having these guys all dressed up like standing there, all they're happy, and you know, I don't know. This is just insanity. It literally is. I have no qualm with that whatsoever. It's crazy. But that little bugger right there, and this little bugger right there. This is big. This is small. This is the radius. This is the ulna. I mean, whatever. One of them is big. One of them is small. Take your pick. Now, surrounding that is going to be muscles and so forth, and some tendonish stuff, which is red and bloody and erodes very quickly. And then outside of that is probably where they somehow sealed the deal. You know, I have no explanation for that other than I could see chemistry here. I can see anatomy. I can see all the things that I would think lead me to believe that these were possibly biological creatures that were encapsulated in some kind of whatever they did, some alchemy. So I'm going to leave it at that, more or less. Alright, check this out now. This is that flat-footed looking thing that we're talking about, similar to the Terracotta warriors. Now, look up here at this. The microscope is looking at this fabric that coats that foot. This is literally skin, and that's the flesh of a creature. And I can show you this and be pretty certain of what I'm saying. You see all these little black balls? You see all these little white fibers in here? And then there's some red looking, that's all blood. And there's some black blood in here. But primarily the balls and the straps and so forth. That is what makes up the fabric of all life, literally all life. See that? That's my belt. That's my belt. Now look at this. This is where the belt loop goes. You see all the little straps? That's what keeps skin together, is all those little straps and the balls. And all this is a fabric. And this is a belt. It's a cowhide belt. And that's why all those little straps are there, because that's where they poked a hole in for the belt loop. Now, I'm going to remove this. Alright, so this is my belt. That is the no-toe. And there it is. Alright, you see the similarity? You know, obviously this is a lot weathered from the belt, but the belt is pretty damn close. Anyway, they're both skin, they're both tissue, and it's on every single bit of these feldspars, which are bones. Even the goose, my goose buddy Caesar, his feathers are in this same style feldspar. And the reason is, collagens make up the fabric that coats your body. Let me turn a little bit of light on here. Whoops. Well, that maybe wasn't a good idea. Feldspar coats everything in everybody's body membranes. Feldspar is all over this. That's feldspar. Feldspar is all over this. That's feldspar. Now, you see all the little black dots? This is the same as what we just saw here in this. I'm going to go back up here. Remember what you're looking at. Right there is the foot, and that is the foot in the microscope. Now I'm going to put the goose head in the microscope. Now come up close and look. Make sure you understand what you're looking at here. All right, see all those little black dots all over the place, and all the little fibers and straps and the reddish looking stuff. All right, that is the fabric of life. You see that? That's the goose's head. Exactly identical to what you just saw. And that's the goose right there. That's Caesar. And that is what all collagens and all feldspars are made of. And it's because, it's because of the collagen and keratin, kerogens, whatever you want to call it. It's the goop that seals you off from the rest of the world. And what happens is aluminum attacks it and seals the deal, whether it's an acid or salt, doesn't matter, because aluminum goes both ways, and it is aggressive as hell, and it bonds with the decay, what would have decayed, and it makes it stable. And once the surface is sealed, the internal stuff becomes sealed, and that's when you get the preservation of the mud fossils. It's because it absolutely was like wrapped in a plastic bag. All right, now I've shown you that virtually all skin tissue and leather and fascia and membranes is made from the same stuff, and it bonds with aluminum silicates. Well, aluminum bonds with it and turns into aluminum silicate coatings that wrap all these things, bones, totally wrapped in that stuff. But inside, it's basalt. It's a totally different story once you get past the membrane. And the same thing with the goose. You see that? That's totally different, absolutely totally different than the outside, because the outside is the membrane that seals it. The same thing with this lung. That was DNA tested. Now, there's different densities of membranes. What do I mean by densities of membranes? Well, that is cowhide. This is natural cowhide, it says it somewhere. Genuine leather. I thought it said cowhide. But anyway, it's genuine leather. Whatever it's from, I don't know. But it's genuine leather. It's from China. What is it? All right, anyway, this is all the same stuff. It's all the fabric that coats the body parts of life. And apparently, all I can say is Velikovsky, who I admire as a hero of history, did the research that everybody claimed it was the same story, that the Earth was literally boiled virtually from an impact, almost from a fiery comet that blazed with the intensity of 1,000 suns coming at us for 1 week, and literally combusted the atmosphere. It boiled the oceans, the rivers, the people literally boiled in the waters, and ended up body parts came out of the flesh. The flesh was eroded into mud, literally mud. Mud is nothing more than bloody eroded flesh. That's all it is. As far as I could determine, there is nothing that doesn't exist from biology. At one point or another, obviously it's been reconstructed into other things and made into building materials and all kinds of stuff, yes. The original source of everything that I can find is body parts and is biology. As far as I'm concerned, 100% at this point, unless somebody can show me that something isn't. And boy, you're going to have a hard time convincing me of that. I've done the homework. I know what I am talking about, and somebody else is going to have to really step their game up to talk to me about this, because right now nobody can stand up to my evidence. It's just overwhelming. DNA tested, CAT scan, and that's not just one. I got 3 of them that are DNA tested, and 2 of them are giant human beings. I've shown them zillions of times, and I now know all the process of the nucleophilic substitution, the invasion of the molecules, and what happens in salts and acids and the different chemistry that is involved in the digestive system and the pancreas and bile, and I just showed one today of a hair. That's a hair. That's the root of a hair, and I showed it today, and that's the muscle attachment. Actually, the roots of your hairs have muscle attachments. So you got to really start paying attention. I'm showing all the evidence. All right, so it's time to take a new look at what's in front of our faces. That's all. That's all I'm asking for. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But boy, I'll tell you, I don't see that happening. I mean, this is just overwhelming how many there are of these things. All right, so I'm going to leave it at this. What is my evidence? This is a foot. I showed you the fabric of the foot. It's leather. It's leather. There's no question. And it has a big, huge bone looking place, which would support big legs like that. It's kind of flat looking in the front. I'm sure they have shoes on covering this, which would go straight across, I imagine. And we looked at this. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. This looks to me exactly what I would suspect if the head got pushed off. This is the fleshy stuff. In certain cases, turns to just mud, straight mud. Depends on where they were buried, and all kinds of things. But I'm seeing a lot of signatures that, I don't know what to think, to be perfectly honest with you. But there's no question that the chemistry can be done, and looking at them in the way of mud fossil eyes, we could get somewhere with this and see. Maybe it's just ridiculous. I'm acting ridiculous, but I can tell you what. If I was doing all this stuff, I wouldn't throw a block of wood on a guy's foot. I wouldn't do that, would you? No, you wouldn't. Don't tell me you would. You would not. Don't say you would. You sound just like my wife. All right, they all have that same foot. They all have the same foot, and they all have these huge, huge legs. And that's exactly what my foot would do. It's exactly what my foot would do. And they all have the same thing. You see? They're all flat in the foot, flat-footed. I mean, every one of them. Look at this. Look at this guy's foot. That's Bigfoot, they call him. Big flat foot. This guy's got a little flat foot. But they all have flat feet, in the front. I'd love to be able to do some research on these things and look at, why did they do that? Everything else is exact. I mean, how flawless can you get? Their facial expressions, everything they had, everything was real too, the armor and all that stuff. So it deserves another look, I would think, because I have found a bunch of statues that have bodies inside of them. That is an established fact. That's not, nobody's taken the time to endorse it or look at it, but I can tell you what, I can show you those, and I will show you one right now. All right, this is somewhere over in Egypt. There's Brian Forrester over there saying very strange weathering pattern. Well, that's not strange. That's a body inside of a pharaoh, or that type of thing, a big, huge statue. And there's the ribs. Those are his lungs, and probably a kidney or whatever down there. And that's the chest of a giant creature that was encapsulated in some kind of a protective coating that made him last a very, very long time. But it is, yes, very a strange weathering. I agree, Brian. All right, let's just start off with this one right here. This is from Tish Egerton. And I think she's in Missouri. I can't remember exactly where, but she sent this to me. I have her stuff here, some of it. She's got a ton of stuff. Now, but this is when it first came out of the ground, and these are when you get the good pictures. After they come out of the ground, they turn into, they oxidize. But this is where all the red blood is. These are literally engineered, and the plate on here is tendon, but it's, somebody must have engineered this system, and I'll show you why I can say that. All right, like I say, Tish went out in 15 minutes and found just an absolutely spectacular find. Now, the first thing she found was these kind of feet, which I believe are the same as mine. Mine is just flawlessly not eroded at all. The fibia falls off, just like hers is gone too. But hers is also eroded where you can see the toes. And they're like little sausages. They're just like little sausages in the end. I think hers is the same as mine. Now, when it erodes, because I believe mine has springs in it too. I can see patterns in it. Not like hers though. Wait till you see this. Now, this is what they call the calcaneal bone. All right, subcutaneous calcaneal bursa, whatever. That's the heel bone. Let's go with that. Now, what happens after that? You need a strap that comes up. You see it here? There's the heel bone. There's the strap that comes up to the big bone that comes down and drops in here. In mine, I have a hole right there. It just sits right there. Now, probably there was more around the back that eroded. I don't know. I can't tell for sure. Hers are heavily eroded. This one here is not this one. It's another one. And this one here, you see that strap? See the strap? You see the heel bone right there? Let me see if I can expand this. I'm going to show it to you in a second. That's as big as I can get. But you can see the circle here and the circle there. That's the heel bone. That's the calcaneal bursa subcutaneous rectohypodal. And coming out of it is the strap. This right here is the saddle where the bone coming down rocks on. So that when you walk, it sort of rocks on that saddle. Now, this is crunched up here because it's snapped. It would have gone way up here just like this one does. All right, right up to here where the bone would have come down. Now, what's in front of that? The springs. I'm going to show you this in a very nice close-up. It just is stunning. I mean, it's stunning because it is to my mind, there's no question somebody engineered it. And secondly, there's no question it's also biological. That is the really interesting thing. Okay, my friends, this floored me, absolutely floored me. This came from Tish Egerton, and she, as I explained before, I think, she took the 15-minute challenge, went out and found this stuff. I mean, just stunning. And she sent me these pictures just after she took them out of the ground. And I showed you the whole leg before. It was another leg, not this one. She just ran into a trove of stuff. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. In 15 minutes. Now, this one here is the piece de resistance. Is that correct? Yeah, the piece de resistance. Now, why do I say that? Because I'm going to tell you what, I see signs of specifically human or some kind of engineering. And again, this was the leg bone coming down here. So what do you need? You need springs. We have tendons. So like these are tendons that make these things pull. There's muscles and tendons. Well, there's no muscles and tendons in here that I can see. But there is springs. They will do the same things. Muscles and tendons are no more than springs. And how could you do a nice flowing spring that could give you a big spring to your foot? All right, so this is flat. This is unsprung. All right. In front is the sausage toes. All right, remember I talked they had little sausage toes? You hit those sausage toes, it pushes this up. All right. Now look at this. Think about this mechanically if you're a mechanically inclined person. This is going to push up, which means it's on a pin, so it has to rock. When it rocks, this part of this piece goes that way. All right, so we're going to rock this way. Well, what's attached to this piece that's rocking that direction? Because we're pushing up here, so we're springing this open. You see this? We're springing this spring open. So it's under tension already. And it's pulling here. Well, that is a little latch. You see the hole? You see the tab? You see, look at exactly the structure of that tab. Look where the hole is. And there appears to be a wire here, or at one time there was. And that wire runs up to that tab right there. And you see that wire, the same thing, there was one here at one time as well. And that latch and tab is identical to that latch and tab. Okay? This comes up, turns this, which forces this to go that direction, which pulls this in. You have a cavity here and a latch. So as this goes forward, this pulls in under tension into that cavity. So now you have one loaded, and now you have a second one loaded. So you have a pretty good throw on your foot. You don't just have the one little piece, you have the one and then the second one. And then when you let go, it just automatically flows back down to flatness. Now, what is this stuff? What's this stuff here? That, I believe, is what's called gumite, and it's a fluffy, like, bumper pad. I'm not kidding you. When this comes up, it bumps into this bumper pad. It's spectacular engineering. I mean, really it is. Now, the same thing back here. You see there's another tab here. Now, I don't know where that one runs to, but I can see a wire running around it, it looks like. Anyway, this is the strap that runs from the back of the heel bone up to where this, you see, it's going directly up to where it would latch to hold this up against that leg coming down. So this is the complete structure of the foot. These little holes in here and so forth, I don't know whether they must be for nutrition. Again, when Tish first took these out of the ground, this goes back, a number of years now, quite a number of years. I can't remember exactly when, but she found them, and once they come out of the ground, they don't last all that well. This is fresh. All my other stuff, I try to get pictures right away because they sit around and they just turn to, they oxidize. All this, the transition metals take on oxygen states that, they deteriorate a lot of times. And they fall apart. But when they first come out of the mud, they can be just absolutely spectacular. Okay, my friends, if you're here, you should understand what you're looking at right there. Obviously, that's some form of a crystal, but this right here is blood, the black and the red blood, which fed something here, who knows what. And that is what's called apatite. You see that? Apatite. Calcium, fluoroapatite. It's all biology materials. Now, what are we going to look at right here? In the microscope, I believe it's a fingertip. Now, we're looking at the broken part, and then I'm going to show you the other part. This is extremely cool. Now, this is up in the microscope. Oh, man. All right, here we go. It's drying up now. I want you to just look at this. It's very, very easy to see once you got mud fossil eyes, but you got to get your mud fossil eyes on. And what are you going to see? Well, right over there is the center of one tendon emplacement. It's coming up this side. You see the big round circle there? And there's one over there, you see it? Big round circle, the whole big thing. You see right in the dead center of it? That's it. And this is the dead center of the other one. Now the red one, I believe this is the red side. It's hard to tell. This is very, very mineralized. When you see, this is literally identical, and I mean identical to that right there, that apatite. I'm going to show you the same crystals and everything on the other side. It's just phenomenal. The stuff that I have in my yard, literally in my yard, is just hard to believe, but it is what it is. So now, don't forget, we're looking at this over here. All right, and then we're looking at over here, that. Now, up in the middle, I believe is where the bone runs, or the bone is running in through here. Like I say, it gets pretty invaded. And this is as invaded as it gets. Now, probably that's enough for you to see this, but this, see, now it's drying up, so you can't see it all that well. Once they dry up, you really lose perspective of it, but you can really see well that. And then you see the crystal one here. That's the whole, the veins. This could be artery, could be, I don't know, to be perfectly honest. But let me put a little more water on here, and then I'm just going to let you watch this for a minute or two. Because this is how it changes as it absorbs the water. Now at first you got a lot of reflection because there's a lot of glare from the water. So I usually take and dampen it off just a smidge here. Get most of the wet off. And then watch it dry out. Because as you watch it dry out, and then do different colored lights. Change the color of the light, you see? Sometimes you can really get a good, you know, you could see the architecture of this right here? That's the top of a finger. And I'll show you the top. And the fingernail is pretty much still, you can pretty much see that. And then you're going to see where the artery blood runs out and is collected at the tip. It's just phenomenal. So the side where the artery blood is, the red blood, is the artery side. And they have, my logo that I use is a hand. And every one of the fingers shows they have two veins side, two on the vein side, two on the artery side, and two at the tips. This is what they call the terminals, where blood exchanges back to the arteries from the veins. I mean, to the veins from the arteries. And there's a web in between. Now, this, I believe, is the artery side. I'm 100% sure now that I remember. Now, so this vein side does not purge out because they clamp off. The arteries are wide open, so if there's enough pressure, they'll blow out through the sides or the front. In this case, it was the front. Now don't forget, you see how red that is now? The more you put water on here, the more you get reaction of colors. See how cool that is? And that one there, you're now being able to see it as a very clear, it fills in with quartz. When these things empty out and there's no place, it's an empty little tube, it fills with quartz. They're veins of quartz. Alright, so don't forget what you saw now. The artery side, we're going to go and look at the top of it, and then we're going to look at the bottom of it. We're going to see grip skin, we're going to see all kinds of mineralization, we're going to see blood flowing out the end and turning into, I'm not sure what it is, it's a crystal, but you have to take a look at it. We'll see, we'll put it in a microscope, and we shall see what it is. Here we go. Alright, now check this out. This is so cool. This is the fingertip. You see these little holes here, these little dots? That is what's called an apical tuft. And it is it's a little round circle. And as this dries up, you'll actually, right now you got a little reflection here from the lights. But as this dries up and that reflection stops, you're going to see a round circle. Very, very clear round circle. And these holes are what anchors your tendons in so that your fingers can do all that kind of stuff. That's the blood literally running out of the artery side. Remember I showed you the red side coming out? We might be able to see some fingerprints on here, a little tiny bit. It's been a long time since I messed with this one. But look at how cool that is. I'm trying to focus it in a little better. Now, let me get a little different lighting on this. You'll see blood here and there. And that's where the fingertip was. I mean the fingernail. Now let me see if I can find, I'm going to let that dry up as you're watching, and I am going to search for an apical tuft, which I have around here somewhere. Just keep watching because it changes. Aha. That's amazing, I found it. That's absolutely incredible. And we're going to look at this apical tuft in the microscope as well, so I can show you the fabric of everything in a little tiny balls. Because what happens is, this is a little eroded, but balls anchor in there, and then these little straps run down, the tendons, that gives you the grip so you can grip things. And again, that is the blood that's running out at the end. Now, I suppose you've seen enough of that. Let's go down here. Let me just dry this up a little bit so there's no reflections. Alright. You see down here, the same thing down there. There's anchors at, see, you can almost see, well you can see the round spot if you know how to look. That is the round spot right down there. Alright, it's right there. Now, up above, this is the other round spot. You see how perfectly round that is? Take your time, I'm going to try to get the best shot of it. It's perfectly round. And it has all these ball holes in there. See? Now this was in the area where it was very, very mineralized. And this was the tip of the finger was down, tipping straight down like this. And the blood ran down and out. And that's the artery side, remember. And there's where the artery blood runs out. It's on that side. Because there's a vein side too, which is right on the other side here, but they don't blow out. Only this one did, because the arteries are wide open, like I said. The vein side is over here, and they don't blow out. You know, very, very rare. I have a gigantic toe where they blew out because the toe had such a callus over the artery side that it couldn't get out. See, that's artery right there. That's artery right there. And that's artery right up there. They blow straight out. I mean, that might be it. And no, I guess it must be this one and this one. All right, and then this one. And that's because this was facing down, and the blood pooled down there and just poured out. Now, remember I said this was apatite? You see all these little fibers in here? That's the fabric of life. Now I'm going to show you the other side of this. Now don't forget, once again, I hope you can see that. It does look a little reflective. Hold on. Alright, you should be able to see that. And that is the exact center of the apical tuft. Right there. And all the little balls go around it. And here's, I have one right here. Same thing. That's it right there. And I still have one ball left in mine. Alright, that one has them all, I'm sure. But they're deep inside. Now, let me turn up the lights on that. Maybe we can see something else. Not really. But now we're going to see the other side. This is just really cool stuff to look at. So this is the fingernail side. Now I'm going to tip it over. Now we're on the other side. Here's the apatite right there. Remember I showed you the apatite? You see the crystals right there? That's the finger. That's underneath the finger. Alright, you see it? You see it? It's the same thing. And that's the fingertip. That's the fingertip. Alright, let me come down on it with the microscope a little bit and we'll look a little closer at that. But isn't that something? Now, before I do that though, let's go to the end. Remember I said the blood is coming out the end? There it is right there. And it died with this side down. Alright, so the blood ran and pooled out the end. Alright, it pooled out this end here and ran down and ran underneath. So now we're going to the underneath side, and that's where the blood puddled up, right there. Alright, that's the puddle of blood. You see it? Now, all of this stuff underneath, This is grip skin. Grip skin is a little different than the rest of your body skin, and that might have something to do with the crystallization, because I don't, I don't see this too often. But apatite, well, let me put it this way. I don't think it has anything to do with the fingertip, to be perfectly honest. It has to do something with the chemistry of the condition that this was in. That's all I can say. It has to be. Now, let me back out of that a little bit, and let's come in closer with the microscope. Hold on. This is just literally bizarre. This is absolutely bizarre. Look at this. This is identical. I mean, there is absolutely no difference whatsoever. This is what they call apatite. That's the fingertip that I just showed you. There is just no difference whatsoever from that. They have to put a little moisture on theirs to have it nice and flashy looking like mine. But there is no difference whatsoever. This thing is just saturated with blood, and you see what happened with the crystals. Let's look at the tip of this where the crystal formed. We'll take a look at the crystal head on, because it's actually not a bad looking crystal. Look, you see it? See the flashing? Alright, check this out. This is just still a little bit moist, so it's a little bit shiny, but I'm going to just let it dry up as we watch. You see all these different colors? That's that crystal. This, I believe, may be gold, or this, I don't know. There's all kind of transition metals in here, and they tend to glob together, like the different colors sort of stick together in a little balls here and there. And these, I'm not sure what's that going on there. They all appear to be almost like blood cells, but I think they're bigger than blood cells. I don't know. But they're all over the place here. You're seeing the little pillows of blood, basically, is what they are. And within that blood is a ton of transition metals. And when a creature dies and the blood runs down to the very tip of their fingertips or toes or whatever, sometimes that transition metal gets clogged up, as it is here. And then it explodes out the end, as we saw. This is a blob of blood blowing out the end. And then as it blows out, it filters out the transition metals into they sort of find each other as they're issuing out, and they turn into little blobular globs. Now let's see if I can get a little bit better. I guess that's about the best we're going to do. Alright, but this is, look at that's pretty interesting bunch of colors. And when I show you transition metals, that's exactly what they are. There's all those different colors. And that's what goes on in your blood. Transition metals have all kinds of different, what they call oxidation states. And what that means is they can have little pinchers on them. They can pinch another molecule, bring it down and drop it off, grab the bad stuff and bring it up and just deliver it back. That's how they work. They pick up and deliver stuff. Look at that. Isn't that elegant? That was where the blood vessel was. And this is just the runoff around it and little bits of metals collecting. But you see that? Now, if there was a certain chemistry in certain places, you get very, very clear crystals, because it's just one specific type of specific gravity in that spot. It's very hard to explain this, so I'm not going to try. Now, this is blood, right? So that is that fingertip, and here it is right here. Now, that's the little crystal on the side, and this is the top of the fingertip. It's a little blob that's sticking out. Alright, so don't forget, there it is right there. That is apatite, as close as you can get to that right there, which is apatite. And this is all biological chemistry. And that, I was told, they had a lot of it in these terracotta warriors. there was a lot of apatite. Now, I don't know what they were talking about, whether they're talking about the paint on the surface and so forth, but I don't think so. I think they're talking about inside. All right, all I'm going to say is I was told there was apatite found in these terracotta warriors, and I don't think it was just in the what they call the polychrome layers applied to these sculpted imperial guards. The components composed of natural inorganic pigments and binding media. Now, they think everything's inorganic if it's become, you know, turned into stone. But it was organic at one time. Now, they say the pigments have identified as cinnabar, which is mercury, sulfur, apatite, which is calcium, phosphorus, oxygen, hydrogen. It's all, you know, copper. It's all organic stuff. It's just exactly what's in us. Now, are they just talking about the paint? Or are they talking about, because then it goes on and says all this stuff was saturated throughout the whole thing, submerged in 6 meters of water, saturated for more than 2 millennia. So they found these apatite throughout the whole thing, not just in the pigments. So I'm just saying, you know, we need to look a little more. And then they try to recreate it by artificially aging model samples, mixing different pigments with animal glue and this all kind of chicken eggs and so forth. Well, it takes a long time for things to crystallize and grow crystals. And that's what happened with the things I just showed you. That fingertip, those crystals grew as a process of nucleophilic substitution and invasion over a long course of times to get crystals like that. They don't happen overnight. So you can't artificially age that kind of stuff. All right, I talked about transition colors all the time, transition metals, and they have all these special colors. Well, that's the transition metals of a heart in an opal. And they have changed and mineralized this opal, and these specific types of chemistry, which are these specific types of membranes and tendons and ligaments and heartstrings and ventricle walls and all of that stuff, have their own specific chemistry. They want a specific molecule to attach to them. And then all of these other ones are just transition metals laying inside the blood because they circulate through the body, delivering and picking up all the trash and delivering all the good stuff. This heart was laying this way. These are laying down at the bottom because of the weight of the transition metals would drift them down, and that side was up where the plasma would be. Let me show you what a real heart looks like, and then we'll go from there. All right, you can obviously see the similarity. This guy has it, or whatever that is, a pacemaker. I believe that's what he's got there now. Same thing, ventricle walls, heartstrings, valves, aorta, all that business. And it will all look for its own specific chemistry because every one of those is a specific chemical type of tissue. Every tissue is different. So your muscle is obviously different than tendon. Tendon is different from the heart and the lungs and the kidneys and all like that. So that's why you see all those colors. Now let me show you what they look like as actual colors. You see this? I said everything that I had was in floods, and they were all in a heavy salt primarily. And there might have been areas where there was acids, I don't know. But there was absolutely, definitely chemistry, and it was in waters. And this is what you have to be. Aqueous solutions. The ions form complexes with colors like this. Aqueous, you got to be in the water, and then you got to be with certain types of chemistry that invade, and specifically the aluminum. That's the one that really does the job. And once that invades the membranes, then these can go in and do their job of attaching to, like you saw in that heart. But only in certain types of conditions. You know, it depends how much clean water was flushing it out, how much was good. Because even like Mitchell Hedges' skull, that thing is real, and it's as clear as it can be, except you can see all of the nerve tissue running through there, where all the nerve endings ended up. I'm not kidding you. And the jaw articulated, it comes right off. It was real. I've looked at that thing very, very closely. And it was invaded by 100% of a certain type of silicate, which made it turn literally into glass. But the nerve fibers are different. They don't play that game. They stay to protect the nerves that would have been in there. But the nerves obviously are not functioning anymore, I don't think. I don't know. Just look at this. It's so obvious, it's unbelievable. This lip is pushed back and the nose is crushed back because the face was laying on its, and the lips and everything are pushed back. Look at this. Just take your time. Look at these fibers, how they run up through here. What's going on with that and what's going on with this? Look at where it goes. Look at where this goes. Look at where that goes. Look where this goes. Look where this one runs up. Look where this one runs up. Look at how this runs up to the front. Look at how that runs up to the front. Look at how this runs up to the back. And look at how this one runs up to the back. Only it's pushed forward because this is pushed forward because he was laying on his nose. So this was this way. That came away from the back of the skull, which it was really should be way back here. But now that bag has come forward, pushing up against here. Normally it would have run way in the back here. But because he was laying on his face, it drifted down. The jaw comes off of here. The teeth did I mean, I don't know how to, I can't account for what the chemistry happened here, but I can tell you what, I am 100% certain that nobody in the world could have possibly done this. You can't get inside to put those fibers in there that match the neurons. Look at this, even this one here, look inside. There's one up here running up like this. You know, it maybe drifted forward a little bit because this pushed it up. See it? It pushed it up. But it would have run right back there just like this, and this would have stuck out in the back. Nobody could have done this. Nobody could have articulated this to have that jaw come off. Nobody's ever been able to account for this, other than just say, oh, it's just nothing. Some monkeys did this in the woods having a good time while they're eating bananas. I mean, it's just insanity. Literally insanity. To not pay attention to what is in front of our very faces. And I've been showing this stuff for 6, 7 years, well 10 years, more than that actually, but in real earnest pushing like hell for 6, 7 years, and forget about it. There is no push that can open that door. I can't find one. Maybe you can. Alright, I'm going to wrap it up right here. This is some more of Tisha's. She just has a slew of these things. And this actually, I'll tell you, to me it looks like it's got what do you call it, a wing nut. And would have held on the pad, which is missing from the bottom. I think these things are totally engineered. And hers would have been no toes too, like mine, I believe. Hers are always in a pretty good state of decay. And here's why I said I think they're like little sausages. You see the little stump that's sticking out of there? It's just bizarre. Very bizarre stuff. That's all I can say at this point, mes amis. We got to look into it. And it is our history. It is our past. This no longer can be denied. The modern techniques, and I've used them, I had my stuff DNA tested 7 years ago. 7 CAT scans too, 7 years ago. 3 DNA tests. And it's time to look at our true past, because I'm going to tell you what, the things that were written in the past all have validity to me now. I was never a believer in any of this spiritual stuff. I thought it was just all nonsense. Well, right now I'm taking a new look at it. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'm just going to leave it at that now. We need to start a discussion. There's no sense in me saying how I feel. It doesn't matter how I feel. You take a look at what you think, and then you figure out what it is. But I go by every text there was. And I have found some very, very seriously valid statements in all of the texts. Literally all of them. So you make up your own decision, and I think it's just time for having a new discussion about what our past was. That's all. Just a new discussion. No arguments, no fighting. But just keep it real. Just keep it real. Don't just make up some statement that's, and disregard evidence. That's my point. I take into all the evidence. That's why I've had to change my point of view many, many times. And I do come back to one conclusion, and again, I'm not going to bother anybody with my conclusions. You make your own.